A freak accident can be defined as an accidental event which results in some kind of physical or mental harm. A freak accidents can happen to anyone, and this extends to superstars of WWE. Throughout WWE history, there have been several occasions where a superstar has been involved in a horrific freak accident either in or outside of the squared circle. This freak accident has altered their career and sometimes even their life. But thankfully, all of the individuals on this list have lived to tell the tale. But which times were they? Well, join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 freak accidents involving a WWE superstar. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Number 10. Randy Orton injures himself. A former WWE champion, Randy Orton, has had his fair share of injuries throughout his decorated career, but perhaps the most unusual was a freak accident which resulted in Orton dislocating his own shoulder. This took place at the Over the Limit pay-per-view in 2010 as Orton was pounding his fist to the mat to set up for an RKO on Edge, but this is when Orton somehow dislocated his shoulder. This is probably one of the strangest ways anyone has ever injured themselves in pro wrestling. But due to his injury, Orton and Edge had to change the match on the fly, which is understandable as it would have been virtually impossible for Orton to continue wrestling. Number 9. Shane McMahon is in a helicopter crash. Shane McMahon has been involved in some dramatic stunts over his career, and Shane has managed to survive them all without serious injury. However, in 2017, Shane's life flashed before his eyes as he was involved in a helicopter crash. The incident took place just off the coast of Long Island, New York, and the helicopter Shane was in suffered engine failure, resulting in the helicopter plunging into the Atlantic Ocean. The Robinson R-44 helicopter reportedly suffered a huge malfunction whilst airborne, and the pilot had no choice but to declare a Mayday emergency. Once it crashed into the ocean, emergency services were able to deal with the crash, and amazingly, nobody was hurt. Shane would discuss the crash with local media outlets following the ordeal, and this is what Shane had to say while speaking with CNBC. Well, it's very unsettling when all of a sudden you have something happen. You hear a bang and then you start to say, "We're going to do an emergency landing in the water." Yes, it was very unnerving. Number 8. Dolph Ziggler, Zack Ryder and Justin Roberts, a limo crash. In the summer of 2012, news broke on WWE.com that Dolph Ziggler, Zack Ryder and Justin Roberts were involved in a car crash. They were in a limo on the way back from an appearance at Comic-Con, and a car unexpectedly went into the back of their limo. Roberts suffered a minor injury, but Ryder and Ziggler were completely fine. Roberts discussed the ordeal during a WWE.com interview, as the current AEW ring announcer stated, "It was a big limo, so we couldn't tell exactly what was going on outside, but we merged onto a highway, and then at one point, we braked. Zack basically slid down the bench. Dolph and I were sitting in the back facing forward, and Zack was on the bench sitting sideways. Then out of nowhere, got hit pretty hard." Number 7. The Undertaker's iconic entrance goes horrifically wrong. A 2022 Hall of Famer, The Undertaker attained a reputation for being one of the toughest men to ever step foot in the WWE. He had an ability to push through injuries and personal turmoil to deliver memorable performances, as he never wanted to let his peers or his fans down. This was clear at the 2010 Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, as during The Undertaker's iconic entrance, his pyro malfunctioned and he received second-degree burns. His hat and coat were destroyed, and it was a miracle that Taker was able to compete at all. The severe burns were so painful that Taker had to keep applying cold water whilst in the chamber pod. The eventual winner of the match, Chris Jericho, would reveal that he could smell the flesh burning off The Undertaker's skin, and Jericho was truly amazed that the dead man was pushing through the pain. Number 6. Vince McMahon's quad tear. Now, although the 2005 Royal Rumble should be mostly known for Batista winning the annual matchup, in reality it's mostly known for WWE Chairman Vince McMahon tearing both of his quads. The finish of the Rumble match was botched, and it resulted in the Rumble match finishing without a clear-cut winner. This resulted in Vince storming down to the ring in utter rage, but Vince somehow managed to tear both of his quads while entering the ring. This led to Vince awkwardly sitting in the ring, directing WWE officials what he wanted them to do. Amazingly, once Vince got back on track, he was able to walk to the backstage area without any assistance, which is unbelievable, seeing as a quad tear is one of the most serious and legitimate injuries an athlete can suffer. Number 5. Seth Rollins' knee injury. In 2015, Seth Rollins was in the middle of a 220-day reign as WWE Champion when a random freak accident during a match with Kane changed everything. Rollins would go for a sunset flip powerbomb, but Rollins' knee buckled and he would tear his ACL, MCL, and medial meniscus. This injury couldn't have been avoided, and it was at no fault of either man in the match. The injury would put Rollins out of action for 6 months, and it forced Rollins to relinquish the WWE Championship. This was a huge blow for WWE as Rollins had become the top heel in the entire company, and his injury drastically altered their booking plans. Number 4. Vic Joseph in a car crash. After the Bell often features real-life stories from WWE talent that have been kept extremely private up until that point. This was the case with Vic Joseph, whose appearance on the podcast led him to offering some details in relation to a horrific car accident that he was involved in before his time in WWE. He would reveal, "I've never talked about this publicly. I went from the back seat through the front seat and had to go to speech therapy and learn how to talk. There's a scar under my face that no one ever sees. My knee from top to bottom was completely out. I was on the side of the road with a white sheet over me. That's how bad it was. I'm being dead serious. I moved and they screamed, 'He's alive.' They put me on a gurney, cut my shirt off, and I made a joke. I woke up with a neck brace on. I have a scar on my face and there's still a piece of glass in there." He would then discuss how he had to go to speech therapy to learn how to talk again, and he also discussed his path to becoming a WWE commentator. He added, "I had to go to speech therapy to learn how to talk. I went to an independent show and I met Rhino. He and I are closer than most people care to know. He's family to me. He said start jumping in the car with me on my off weekends. Every weekend I was in the car with him. He let me pick his brain for hours in the car. He introduced me to Person A and Person B. I ended up meeting Tommy Dreamer. He had a promotion he was running. The day his promotion was going to start, he asked me if I wanted to call the show. That is what started me on the path to WWE." Number 3. Triple H's quad tear. A WWE legend, Triple H has been rather unlucky when it comes to injuries. He's torn his quad twice during his career, and on both occasions, the injury was a complete freak accident. The first time this took place was in 2001 on Raw as Triple H ran into the ring to break up the walls of Jericho, and this resulted in Triple H having an ability to put any weight on his leg. The second time took place in 2007 as Triple H would perform a spinebuster on Randy Orton, and in a similar situation to the 2001 injury, he was once again in complete and utter agony. Number 2. Randy Orton's motorcycle accident. Randy Orton hit headlines in 2008 after he was involved in a motorcycle accident which could have ended in tragedy. Orton, who'd only been riding for a month, said he was riding around a sharp sudden curve on a steep hill when an oncoming vehicle veered into his lane, causing him to widen his turn. Orton then hit a curb and was thrown off his bike. The Viper collided with the ground and he was knocked unconscious. During an interview with WWE.com, he would reveal that he was lucky to survive the incident with just a broken collarbone. He stated, "When I came to, I knew I'd re-broken my collarbone. When the police and firemen got there, they asked me, 'Where's the guy who was in the wreck?' And I said it was me. Without a helmet, I would be dead. Now that I have a newborn daughter, so much was going through my head." And number 1, Ric Flair's plane crash. On October 4th, 1975, wrestling legend Ric Flair's career almost ended when he was involved in a serious plane crash. The crash in question took the life of the pilot and it paralyzed Johnny Valentine. Flair broke his back in 3 different places and he was told that he'd never be able to wrestle again. But Flair had no plans to retire from pro wrestling at just the age of 26, and he entered a period of strenuous physical therapy, and he somehow managed to return to the ring in just 3 months after the incident. Flair was forced to change his in-ring style to the one fans are more accustomed to, and this miraculously resulted in Flair wrestling into his mid-60s. But there you have it, folks, 10 freak accidents involving WWE superstars. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.